UN officials say at least 1 million Ukrainians are now displaced throughout Europe. It's the swiftest exodus this century. Millions more are expected, and it's now the worst refugee crisis there since World War II. The family of our next guest knows the ravages of a European war and forced displacement all too well. Award-winning actress, producer, singer-songwriter Judi Beecher joins us to share the story of her grandparents and mother, and they were victims of the Nazis, and they were displaced and forced into internment camps in France. So tell us what happened to your family.
So my family's from Germany, and they, for many, many, many generations, I mean, they go way, way, way back, very patriotic Germans. And, they were, my grandfather was a teacher and a cantor. They were in a town called Lörrach, Germany. In October 1940, the Nazis made a decree that they came and all the Jewish families, the two Nazis came to every door, and at the same time on every Jewish family, and you were only allowed, they came to the door and they said you're only allowed to take one suitcase, 100 Reichsmarks, and that's it, and you have to leave everything else. And they were forced out of their homes and they were put on a train, in cargo
Transport.
Yeah. They were sent to a camp called Camp Gurs in southern France, and the conditions. It was my mother, who was 4 years old at the time, and my grandparents, my grandmother, my grandfather, and all the rest of my family as well. They didn't have food. There was dysentery. There were bed bugs. There were bugs all over their bodies. They had no hot water. They only had cold water, so they couldn't wash anything. They couldn't get the bugs off of them. They had not enough. They were trying to starve them to death. As time went on, things got worse and worse and worse. And they decided they were going to take all of the Jews from these camps and deport them to the death camps. And they smuggled my mother out of the camp. My grandparents went into hiding in the barracks, the attic of the barracks. They hid in the schoolhouse. So they were hidden for 10 nights in the schoolhouse. And one of the other Swiss Red Cross workers, she would come and bring them food every night. And so they had the first transport went out, and people were arrested and sent off to the death camps. Only 86 people survived from the camp, my grandparents being one of them. They snuck out in the middle of the night. They didn't know where my mother was going to be taken. They weren't allowed to know because just for her safety.
She was only 6 years old.
Yeah, so my mother at that time had been sent to a chateau on the French-Swiss border, and she was hidden with orphans in this chateau, which was run by the Swiss Red Cross. And once my grandparents made their way across, all these things happened, raids and this and that, they finally were able to escape into Switzerland. And they had to find my mother, and they didn't know where she was. And so they were finally able to locate her. And they had to somehow get her into Switzerland from France, which was occupied. So they snuck her on a bicycle, on the back of a bicycle, and they brought her to the border, and she was hidden out in a little way house. And then she was trained with this other little girl. For a few days, they would train her on how they were going to get her across the border. And so they played ball. And with this little ball, they practiced playing ball and playing catch at the border. And then at the count of 3, the other little girl was going to throw the ball. And they said 1, 2, 3, and the little girl threw the ball. And my mother had to go run after the ball and just kept running. They said, don't catch the ball, just keep going. Don't look back, just keep going. And that's how she ran and ran and ran across the border crossing, right into the legs of a man in uniform.
A Swiss man? Okay, we'll have to wait and see, but we'll have to wait and see. So you are doing a film about this.
I am.
Trying to raise the funds to put this on film.
Yes, and it's so important to educate people because we really don't know. You don't know what the truth is unless it's coming from the person that it actually happened to. It's helping the world, come to a place of peace and come to a place of love. And I think that's the goal that we all want to achieve. We all want there to be, love and peace in this world and in this planet, especially what's going on
yes,
right now.
Everything that's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's such a need for this. Tell me how people can find out more.
So I have a website for the film. It's the Kindness of Strangers doc, kindnessofstrangersdoc.com. You can read about the film.
Judi Beecher, award-winning actress, right? Producer,
Award-winning actress,
singer,
yes.
songwriter. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you, and I hope the documentary does very well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And yes.